Hey, Louvain, and welcome back once again to Gary Grigsby's War in the East. I'm here with the 24th turn for the Soviets, and this is the turn that we get all this manpower released, which means you get to see a lot of additional men here on the map. For the Germans, things don't look quite as nice, as you can see here too. So that's pretty nice. Things are looking up, I guess. New events, Soviets release reserves. As Soviet forces mobilized in the fall of 1941, Stavka insisted on keeping large reserves in anticipation of a winter counteroffensive. Although some reserves were released in late November, most did not arrive at the front until December. We got 500,000 men in the manpower pool. And yeah, okay, well that's nice. Looking at the weather. It's, I guess, harsh winter from there. If we look at weather ground, that's not really going to change. There will still just be snow. But there will be, again, no blizzard on any territories that my opponent controls. Which is a bit sad, but yeah, no. But what can you do? This is light snow. Oh, there are some parts with heavy snow, but they're not relevant. They are... No, not even in these places there's enough snow. Only here. Yeah, I guess. But like I said, that's completely irrelevant, so... let's get through the air turn. I don't really need to do anything yet, and then... well, I continue along with that. Seems like my opponent has retreated in the section over here. Near the Donbass. Don't know if this is Donbass still. I guess so, but it's the Donetsk region, I think. This is the Dnipropetrovsk region, and then... let's see if there's anything on the map that indicates it. Yeah, Donetsk Basin, I suppose. But yeah, the further we can push our opponent, the better, I guess. So I guess he's been pushing back a bit. I have to be careful that I don't run into the trap of becoming too weakened. Let's take a bit of a peek, because my opponent did crush my units here, but the main goal here was, of course, to make sure that my opponent's supplies were, you know, getting wrecked. Let's start with Crimea. So most of the German infantry is now down here, and I will most certainly have to go and retreat. I'm gonna let's take a look. My opponent is still not putting any naval interdiction there, which is nice, because it means I get to keep Sevastopol for just a bit longer. Now, let's move you in there. I already have 76,000 men there. And you up here. These guys will go down here. And then we'll see how that goes. These guys are still relatively powerful. I would think they would be at near 100 combat strength. It is quite tempting, but I'm quite sure my opponent blocked this off. Let's just see. Yeah. It was worth taking a look, I guess. One thing that is interesting is that if he has just Romanians there, at least for the moment, we can question whether I want to try and hold this. It's not looking very defensive, that's for sure. I'm thinking about just retreating at least for the moment, and then waiting until we get to Kerch, pretty much, and then get the remainder of the units there. So I think that will be my strategy. So let's just give them 3 hexes, one, and then this is 1, 2, 3, and then they would have a hard time doing some serious offensive. That's all fine. I hope they don't have any supplies there. They don't. Okay. Sure enough. So this way I can make sure that, you know, whatever my opponent does, it will take some sweet time. Seems like there's still something there on their 9th Army, which I find very weird. I wouldn't think Southern Front, or 8th Army at least. Oh, you are in the 9th Army. Not anymore. 8th Army it is, and then 8th Army is overburdened. Let's put you under the Southern Front too. Just like that. And who is this? Ivan Petrov. It's a pretty decent guy, actually. He's pretty high stats, but I do want to hold on to Sevastopol as long as possible. And then if we're looking at these supplies, my planes should be flying too, at least a little bit. And yeah, that means at least that my opponent is losing some of those airplanes, which I also like. If we're looking at losses here, air losses in general, my opponent has lost 64 planes in the current turn. Most of them operational losses, flying through the bad weather, but also some air combat losses. That's actually pretty neat. And also means that his amount of airplanes in general, I mean, he has over 5,000, but he needs them in other places too. So once the new year starts, I think we can potentially start making a serious dent in his air power. So that's good. He's actually getting down on map forces by quite a bit, which I guess should be, well, hopefully scary for him, but his forces are more powerful than mine after all. Either way, let's go up. I do want to consolidate everything a little bit here, because I do not think things look half as nice as they might be. Now, there are certainly places where I'd like to get further, but I have to be really careful only to get my more powerful units. And as you can see here, my opponent also has a lot. So I really need to be careful. But I most certainly also want to try and get ahead here, get some attrition going, because I don't want my opponent to just go here, sit and do nothing. That's certainly not what I'm looking for. But I also have to dig in. So it's a bit tricky. I cannot get out too far out of nowhere and have the chance of getting trapped, but I also do want to move forward. My opponent does have some stuff there also that I don't necessarily like. So if I'm gonna actually meet my opponent out here toe to toe, like for example, I think it's a pretty bad deal to try and get in here. Maybe. Let's actually though get you out and you in here. And I also need to do stuff like refitting. So if I have units that are very weak, like these two, I need to get stronger units into Mariupol. And this does look a lot better because those are at least somewhat stronger. And the forces that I have here are in serious need of reorganization. Where is the closest depot? I guess Taganrog. I could try to push back the Hungarian motorized brigade. I could. But the question is, do I want to do that? In any case, I will certainly stay in this hex. because that does give me at least some decent defense. And basically 12th Army, just like that. I want the lower ones to be part of 12th Army here. Then there will be other units that I'll put under a different army. It will have to be 3 units, so all those, so basically 1 unit from here. They already on 26? Okay. I should also be getting another 2 armies. Maybe they deployed in a convenient area. 44th Army is here. I've already put stuff under the 44th Army. Let's move you here. I cannot unload it, of course. No, 80 is needed. Fine. That is just fine. I could actually no, if I the thing is, if I put this mound unit in here, and this mound unit, and what is most likely my most powerful unit after that? 171. You're at 183. So I put this cavalry here. Tanks here, so they can't immediately cross. That will delay them in taking Kerch. And if my opponent doesn't attack, they can actually start building fort levels. And that would allow me to delay my opponent further. At the same time, I can actually get a few units around here. These guys will need to be put on refit because basically they're at 5,000 men. That definitely doesn't work. But I'll just send in 2 more infantry. And if my opponent wants to get a lot of infantry around here, not only does he need to send some infantry back over here to Kerch, I just want him to try and deal with the, get him to try and deal with the Crimea for as long as possible. So the longer I can also get him from Kerch, the better. Could even turn Kerch into a fortress, maybe. I mean, there are 3 units now, so I guess then you can't. I can take this back. I'm just curious to see whether I can... Oh no, you need a unit on it, and then... I could turn this back. So you wouldn't be able to make a fortress unit because you haven't been there on that turn. Okay, right. Let's move them there though, because it's not close enough, and then put you under the 9th Army and you as well. There's one thing that I want to do, and that is looking at their TOE, because they have December 41 Rifle Division TOE, which then quickly changes again afterwards. Pretty much back to this almost, except that they take out cavalry. They get some machine, well, some cavalry. They get some machine, less engineers, less machine guns. It's a lot smaller indeed, which does suck. Alright, but that's fine. These guys are gonna go and support the 9th Army. Technically I can get another 2 infantry units to do that, but they're not here at the moment. So, and I also can't put them there at the moment. We'll have to see how my opponent deals with this. I don't think these guys are particularly powerful, but I also don't want to aggravate them. His defender's CV, for example, here is really high. I wonder what that is. Seems like a Romanian unit, supposedly. But then that's a very high CV and not a very high attack. That's very weird. Well, we'll see. So that's 9th. Let's take a look here. So 44th has this guy. Let's switch him up. I actually want a guy with pretty reasonable mech too, but it doesn't have to be an insane guy. Something like this guy is pretty decent. So 5, 6. That's not bad. And he's not in a front where it's particularly needed either way. It does seem like the southern front is severely overburdened. How is the southwestern front doing? Also overburdened, huh? Well, let's start here with moving this cavalry around. Because once again I get big plans. So let's see how far they can get. If they take that hex too. They did not. So my opponent does have a unit at Lubny. Did I take that hex? Yes, I did. Let's get them out of encirclement. One of the things that I in a sense will find most interesting is what my opponent is pretty much going to do, because there are these holes in here. That if I was my opponent I would not thoroughly enjoy. And there are also places like this. Ooh, we have the first guards units. Sweet. Didn't get mentioned there before. We got 1st Guards Rifle Division over here. And I'm really curious if we already have a guards unit somewhere else. This 49th changed to Moscow Defense Zone. Yeah, I currently only have 1 guards unit, it seems like. At this point, let's take a look. Commander's report screen. Just regular infantry. I can't select whether they should be guards, but let's check on morale. Because I would guess that those guards rifle divisions would have a very high morale. But they don't. I only have 1 of them indeed. That's fine. I wonder if I can also already get cavalry coordinate. I don't think I can. Is there any place where I have 3 cavalry stacked? Probably don't. It is clear that I can cut them off again, though. I will once again be able to isolate them, at least for a turn. They were able to beat me quite effectively here. with minimal losses, even though his units have been cut off for quite a few times too, I think. At least quite a few turns. Now, I'm gonna move you in here, so I know 100% sure that I can cut my opponent's units off. And let's just move the cavalry here for a moment too. Alright, so these guys are once again isolated. How does it look? It should be pretty reasonable, you would think, and that is indeed the case. I also like that my opponent is losing a lot of those things here. A lot of artillery. Let's see what kind of losses those are. So for my opponent, those would be, because they're 36, that would be, I guess, anti-tank guns and some artillery. Yeah, a lot of artillery here. That's basically the big prize in that regard. Getting my opponent to have not have less guns. So my opponent lost 755 guns last turn. Just going down. So my opponent almost has less guns than at the start of the war, whereas we're quite a bit higher. I think I caused my opponent serious problems in here. How much did they lose? 336 men. So he didn't lose that many men, although I guess it's under 10,000 now. Yeah, so the thing that I'm looking for really now is cutting them off a bit easier. So if I can get some way to launch multiple attacks, multiple heavy attacks, which is quite difficult through this weather. I can start isolating this area, which is what I want, and then I can potentially take those units out. It doesn't even really matter to me that I might not be able to take this territory. That's not important. Making surrender another 1 or 2 German divisions is going to be good enough, and my opponent already has a huge gap in between the two different armies that would be hard to deal with. I'm trying to zoom in here. Nope. So that's not a very great attack. Ah, man, it's such a shame that they cannot reach it just by a hair's breadth. I wonder if guards have a different TOE. I don't think they do. They don't. I think. I just think that they get a... does it even say anything about it? Yeah, it does have a different text about it too. Interesting. Well, do I not have... I do have this mountain cavalry. I'll put under 10th Army. If I do beat these guys, I'm still just only going to beat them back for a bit, but... cavalry cannot get anything assigned. You can. Let's get some tanks. I think tank brigades will really help at that for now. Tank brigades are not bad in terms of strength, so... You can actually see indeed I got the CV up to 9.4. That's down to 6 now. I lost 39 tanks, of course. That is no surprise. Let's take a look. T60s, T34s, some KVs as well. Yeah, that's pretty rough, but this unit is pretty much done. And it opens up a wider gap, so I now have the ability to put units in there a bit easier, and that means I can cover this flank a bit better if I want to keep them isolated. They're still marginally far from anything that they can potentially throw at me. Like I said, I know they have a unit at Lubny. Which is fair enough. I just need to keep them isolated, but also if I just make them retreat and get closer together, that's also fine. I just need to put enough pressure upon my opponent. I do like this retreat already. It costs 5 to move through the weather like that, or the snow like that for infantry. I might be able to also isolate this stronger 183rd Infantry, which seems like it's gonna be a bit of a bitch. Alright, I'm gonna take a little break though. But let's also assign support units here. I'm also going to assign separate tank battalions and more tank brigades. I have a lot of them, and this is probably going to hurt me, but that's okay. I want to try and push these back. And if I can put units in here and still attack them, I also think that's pretty good. If I move them here, though, I wonder if I can put anything else in that hex. That would be great, because then they would have a lot of trouble with retreating and stuff. Let's do that. I know they'll get routed. But in that case, at least if they do retreat, they're gonna be in trouble. I'm sure he has a unit in there. The only unit that I'm not that convinced about are those 2 strength units. Oh, they're not down here. Right, well, here we go. Oof. Let's take a look. So those losses are quite heavy. I did bring that down to 0, but then... only lost 8 tanks this turn. Now... that rather sucks. I guess once again I was too hasty. As usual. Let's take a little break though. I'll be back. Alright, back, and let's see where we were. I think I was still busy down here in the south. I tried to make a better case for everything here. Since I think, let's actually turn down that sound a bit. There we go. Hope it wasn't too hard, but yeah, things were a little bit of a mess down here due to all the attacks, and rather I have things stabilized. Now if I do have things up on the front here, I want to have at least 2 units in 1 hex, and besides that, to be honest, I also don't want to immediately get right next to the enemy, so I want to slowly build my way forward. My opponent has given some ground. I'm quite happy about that. I think as of starting stages for his potential 1942 offensive, you know, the further back we push him, the better, and the less territory he takes. So I think we're at a pretty good starting point for that. Of course, we'll have to see how far we can ultimately get this winter offensive. We still have, I would say, both December and January are good months to still attack. But ultimately, we'll have to see. Alright, so I think I can stand right next to this. I'm not going to attack this turn. I'm just kind of looking to gauge how far I can go with some of these. They're already back down to 1 with 50 fatigue just moving that space. And we could also see that the defense is really low. So I definitely do think I should be careful. You're probably also going down to 1. No, still at 2. Okay. There would be something to say for moving into these 2 hexes since they're on the river. I think that might be possible if I have enough armor, but then I would have to move in the infantry somewhat later. I would have to see whether that works. You know what, actually, let's just go in here. And mechanized is not too powerful, but if I can go and dig in, maybe I'll be okay. It's an 8. I don't see these two attacking there necessarily, and I do have these fortifications. I would have to put something there, otherwise these fortifications, they're gonna build back, basically. They're gonna go down, and that wouldn't be good. I don't think it's that bad to put something in the rear there either. And like I said, these guys are currently in pretty bad shape for that. But that's it. Actually, I do have 3 cavalry here, or 2 cavalry here, which I think can also fit that role. So I can then just keep those guys on there, on some of those hexes, to keep those fortifications, because I actually do want to keep this fortification line here. I do think that's going to be very good. I have the same problem up here, that I don't have units on this line, and I think what I can do is I can get some of this infantry to switch up with some of the weaker units in this area, so that I can do that. If I attack here, it would actually be pretty interesting to also cut off the 183rd Infantry Division. I would have to move in here. My opponent has decided to leave Poltava empty entirely. You're already in range. How much is that? I have 24, so they're overburdened. Like everything else around here. Let's also move the 102nd Rifle in there. Again, it's going to be... Attacks are always going to be difficult, but this is 0.7 defense. Let's actually see how many units it had. This light division now has 9,000. I wasn't really planning on taking Poltava, so I'm kind of okay with this. What I want to do is move you in here. Now, like I said, my opponent will, not necessarily surely, but we'll be able to reconnect here. So there's that. Let's just keep systematically doing this, because I keep messing it up and going to other theaters. Okay, so we got that. Now, I think I'd rather stay in there. Let's move at least these 2 in there. So that's good. One of the other things that I really like about this is that my opponent has to keep his units not in fortifications. So he's gonna get more losses that way, or at least more damage units. Right. The problem here is that I cannot move in too far. I'm kind of looking to put at least some units in here. I'm a bit afraid I might have to use stuff like this mechanized, even to get close. Which is a terrible idea, but I have a sensation that my opponent might not necessarily want to attack too heavily there. Yeah, but we'll see. Now, what does getting these tanks in there do? It's not even that bad for my tanks. So let's leave it at that. As I said, they're quite weak in that state. Let's get this 40th tank over here too. I will have to reorganize those units as well, of course. But that way... That's... If only I could put another unit in here, but sadly I can't. So I'm not gonna move all the way in there. I think in that regard, let's move like this. So off the train. And I cannot move very far, but that's fine because I also still need units to defend along that line. At the very least. I do have this armor. I can actually then get the 175th infantry over in refit here, and I'll put these as armor on the reserve. Back there. Okay. You two there. Then you in there. I also need a unit in Makivka. Can you just... No, okay. But you don't actually need to refit. I mean, 59 for tank division is not amazing, but well, let's actually take a look at the depots too. I can put a depot here, and that will allow me to at least put the 139th in here on refit, and the 52nd tank, which is also not in great shape, but for tank division they're okay, I guess. You in here. Gorlovka also has a depot, so let's get 254th on refit in there, and then I have 19th tank that can fill some other gap in the line potentially, or move up. So let's see if I can make a double line. If I put units forward, it's going to be the 147th. These other two, well, this rifle division is not too bad, but I need the 151st to go back into a depot. To rest and refit. This is a level 2 fort, so I would also like to at least keep a unit on that in order to not let it deteriorate. Wow, that's weird to pronounce. Let's get this tank unit on there, and I'll just let them dig in there. That's not a big deal. My offensive doesn't need to go super far. The best, or I just need to push back my my opponent. I don't expect to win the war in 1 year here. But the more I can do, the better. So if I can do stuff like this, where I can inconvenience my opponent as much as possible, that is great. So I would like to, you know, try and liquidate it pocket, because this is like 100k men, and I think for the Germans this is really insane. Like, where is my opponent gonna find the men to cover such a front? Where? So There certainly is that. Right, this infantry division will easily break out, obviously. But that's besides the point. Let's continue with this line. Need some units here. 12,000, not bad. You're at 6,000. So I'd rather not get too far in. Don't have any infantry for this hex at the moment. There's a cavalry here which is doing okay. But how are you? 9,000. Right, let's move them there and keep them there. Other areas of the line. Well, I don't have any forward line here specifically. I do want to send you back. It's surprising that you're ready. But okay, I have fortifications here, so I don't need to worry about those areas. This cavalry, I'm gonna move it up for a sec. So let's start with getting the 131st back in here. I don't know what happened to it. It didn't. Yeah, it might have been from here or something along that line. But I don't think my opponent has good supplies here still, but you never know. Either way, mountain cavalry is doing okay, which is nice. I have this cavalry. It does need to refit, and then this mechanized is, I guess, as good as can be for a mechanized unit. Let's put you to 4. Let's see, where could I do want another depot here at Kramatorskaya now. The closer I can get my depots to the front, the better. I know I don't have any rail lines working here, so that's obviously not working out. But that way also I can just get you on refit there. I don't expect any miracles, but I guess we can work with it. Now, I'm gonna put this cavalry in here. It doesn't provide all that much defense, but it does provide a few more men. Okay. Let's get to the 251st also to go back and refit, because it's also not in good shape. Okay. And I actually kind of want to get either the tank division or the mechanized division out. Let's have the tank division just on reserve here, which is not great. It's at 48% TOE, and then I have these guys there, but I want you here. Like, this is already not great, but I think for the moment holding a line like this is actually not that bad. Like, ultimately, if I can make a push towards Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporozhye, something like that, that would be pretty nice. Okay, well, first let's reinforce this here area with some infantry. So Let's take this cavalry and put it there. I'm quite hesitant, at least for the moment, about launching any serious offenses currently. I can, yeah. If I move them in there, I have these two cavalry to at least maintain the fort levels here. I think for the level 1 fort levels, that's not even necessarily all that important. Well, basically I can see my opponent making another move in 1942, at least to capture the Donbas. He'll probably want to finish that, I guess. Alright, let's get you off of the train, and that will allow me to move the mechanized unit out. And I guess put it on reserve. So I would then have a marginal front line here. Let's take a look further on, because I have the 199th. Let's switch the 97th with the 199th. Or the, yeah, exactly, because you're at 7,000 men. Like, refit that. And let's switch the 38th with the 1st Guards. When it comes to the rail line, do I have any cities which are closer where I might put depots? I guess Tikachevo. And the rail will be fixed next turn too, so I actually think that will be okay. Yeah, isn't Pavlograd also having... No, it doesn't have anything except a rail yard. Can I actually see whether the rail yard is fixed? I guess I can. Yeah, because this rail yard is completely fixed, so... Makes sense. Okay, that's better. Get some of those weak units to refit. And yeah, I can't move in that direction. Let's move you here. Ideally, again, I do have 2 units at the front, or a double stack, which I don't have yet in a lot of areas here. Also with what's going on here, so for me it's only logical to send more units down to this area. Because otherwise it'd be trouble. It almost looks good, but I wouldn't say it is. Definitely not attacking this turn. Any further. Yeah, I just don't have the capabilities. There's something to be said for moving cavalry there. And just getting either like weak mechanized. The great thing about getting cavalry through is that they can grab a large piece of territory. Yeah, let's do that. These guys are too weak. But let's move in those mechanized units. Really, you cannot get. There you go. I want to transfer these into the reserves. Hey, it's using Valentine's. Okay. Now, what I want here too. That attack is never gonna succeed here. Through any means. Pretty interesting that my opponent has armor in there. I'm not quite sure what the benefit of that is. Okay, so my opponent does have units there, but like I said, I kind of want to get units on the Desna and try to work out something there. And that means that even though they might be weak units, I will gladly move them forward. Now let's get the cavalry in here, because I now have this infantry to move here. Defense of 6, but they have an attack of 2. Making that a bit easier. Let's pluck here the gap. So also again, at least we have units on that. I would say that you need to be on refit, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Let's put these guys in here to fill that up. Cavalry in here, also on refit. Did I get attacked here? Yes, I did. Destroyed the fortifications. It's interesting because indeed I'm not actually getting access to that hex or to those hexes. So clearly my opponent has something there, but I don't know what. Taking Chernikov does not really have any value to me. Yeah, so what I will do is do this. I want to widen the gap and make it harder for my opponent to put new units in there. As well, while I guess in a sense tightening the ring here. My opponent still has the ability to break through down there, so let's do this too. Hopefully getting access to those two hexes. Then what I want to do here as well. Let's go slowly. Like it's unlikely that my opponent actually has access to these rail yards. I actually think that the best he can do is probably here. So we're still too early into the war, and I think it's actually apparent from what I did in the other campaign as well. Playing as the Germans, I do think the first episode will have been published by now, but where I'm playing as the Germans, playing against Co-Chopper, I actually had the forward rail unit from, or the FBD, going from Brest basically down in order to get a rail line moving up towards Kiev, and then from Kiev working it up here. So I had my opponent actually fixed up this rail yard, or that rail, instead of the rail towards Smolensk. Or if he had a rail, well, going from Minsk down south. I don't know if my opponent did that. It could be, because he actually did get units here pretty quickly, so I think he might have. I certainly would not have put it past him to deal with that rail as it is. Yeah, it certainly is very interesting. My opponent can also move his armor from down here and then work it up. He has not yet done so in great numbers. Yeah. Go here. Down here. And then in here. Interesting. In here. I wonder where my opponent potentially got those units from. But any cavalry that I can push through, like these. They're at 81. Or 15, like that. I will. I know they're weak. But like that, they might actually prevent the opponent from getting there. Going the extra mile. Now, what I do need to do is make sure that this is secure too. So I don't want all these infantry to be cut off, naturally. But I will also attack to that end. How would an attack here look like? Yeah. Not too great. I do have 3 additional infantry out there. Yeah, I can put the mechanized there. They're gonna be weak, but it's a 3rd unit. Let's go. I did push these Gebirgsjäger twice. They are at least at 9,000 men, and they're not gonna get reinforcements next turn. Did my opponent actually fly in stuff? I guess he didn't. Might be very tricky. Now, I will put this cavalry over in the swamp. 8th Panzer, huh? I'm quite sure that this Panzer division is going to wreak havoc, but the fact that it's encircled, at least at the start of the turn, is pretty good. Yeah, taking this here lone hex doesn't help at all. Now I already know that my opponent has a unit there. I can technically go in here and then try to go in here, cut off that armor. I don't think that's going to be useful. I'm a bit afraid of that armor, to be honest. So, in all honesty, I think I'm going to pull out of Chernikov and also abandon cutting the rail here. This thing is gonna be problematic. So, I'll move back with the 143rd. It was fun. And I really think that overcommitting at this stage against German armor, even though it is in the winter, is probably not a good idea. And like I said, he has actually gotten this rail line covered. So we'll see what he can do with that armor during the winter. And at the same time, that's why I'm gonna actually put this mechanized unit in here and put on reserve. Obviously it's very weak, but it means at least the distance between this and this is more difficult. I could see them going down. They can probably move a lot still, but I don't have a unit to put down there, so I'm not doing that. Now, I could assign some tank brigades and actually beef them up like that. You can no longer attack. Nice, and that's what I'm looking for. Those are some nice hits. I think these guys might also no longer have trucks, and because of that, I think we're looking to be in pretty good shape, and I actually do like hits like this, naturally, at this stage of the war. I think a lot of the German units might be damaged, and because they are damaged, they will actually get destroyed much faster. Yeah, that looks great. And also gives my troops some much needed victories. Move you here. I wonder what would happen. 1.3 against 0.4. Okay, I actually think like machine gun battalions are okay, but if I get tanks in there, I can probably still do a soft attack, and I think I'll make it. Yep. Okay. Very nice. It's a shame I cannot get anything in there. Can you? Yeah, they're unready. But I don't really care. It means they'll also have to use an attack, even if it's a soft attack, in order to split up the two pockets. Like that. And they can easily go in here. I know. But I'm just gonna try and wear these pockets out. And hope that I can potentially liquidate one of them or two of them before they actually have their relief attempt ready, which I don't think is that likely, so don't get me wrong, but even just attacking like this is causing a huge amount of disruption, I think, for my opponent's plans. Because I also think that despite like, I think it might be problematic for my opponent to get like a relief attempt to this side too, because there's also a threat from my other forces coming from here on this side. I'm not quite sure if he appreciates that threat. It's always funny because even with all this stuff, German losses are still lower than mine. However, $42,000 to get him below 3 million. Yeah. Okay, let's see where those reinforcements would be best suited. I actually think they'd be best... I guess probably down... No, not necessarily. Because if well, there's one thing that I know for sure is that I want to have this unit rail down here. They can't get off of the rail, of course. Maybe it's better to get them into Sumi. Yeah. That way they can at least get off of the rail. Start fixing it up. Now they'll just work this and then go work on that double rail for as that much that might be possible and try to get to Konotop, which would be a pretty good base from which to move further down with whatever potential forces I might have available. Yeah, not doing that. Right, well let's just rail them into Sumi. And I'd actually like to push these units as far as possible as well. To try and get everything to split up as much as possible. These guys can actually move a lot. You could even launch a heavy attack in some areas, although I don't think it's worth it, probably. Well, do want to have at least a unit there. Nope. You're supposed to be on the train. Go here, get off, and let's actually move you to the other side. With these guys in there, I mean, they're just gonna do a soft attack and rout them. I'd really rather have them in there, yeah. Another cavalry. I'll move this cavalry further down here. I'll see how far it can get. It's funny that I get actually pretty close to Kiev, but I will obviously never be able to take it as my opponent will have units on it. So that is pretty funny. These guys are better at defending and these guys are quite a bit weaker, so let's do this 643 kind of thing. Then my opponent might try and attack onto this rough hex first. My opponent needs to attack all these hexes in order to clear them out, so that must make it even more problematic. One of the things that I could do, and I think that's pretty sneaky, but I think it might just work. If my opponent doesn't pay attention and he doesn't have any units here, if I, like obviously this is very high risk, but if I put this cavalry right here, he might not actually spot that. No hexes are taken. I certainly don't want to get into this hex, but then next turn, if they do get high movement, I can hopefully slice through here and cut off these guys. I mean, they do have a port. Fair enough. How's the interdiction around that port? Comes from Sevastopol. But I might disrupt them by going around them, cutting them off. Isolating those units for a turn will certainly be annoying for my opponent, and the further I get, the better, I guess. I do think the 4,000 men will make it worth a try. And I don't see my opponent immediately trying to attack in there, nor do I think like going through the mountains and then putting an attack on Yalta is unlikely. But the defense of 53... It's a bit of a trade-off, really. But I wonder which would be better. Having my opponent need to put multiple units around here in order to deal with Yalta is quite useful too. So I wouldn't necessarily say that actually doing this is going to work out very well. I cannot get any new units in there. So that's besides the point. And he's not going to get rail supplies in there either way. Yeah, let's just leave it like that. It's an interesting idea, but I don't necessarily think that doing that is going to work out the way I might want it to. Let's get these tanks that I'm not going to use onto this hex to protect those level 2 fortifications too. Certainly not something that I want to put in there. Even if these guys all reconnect, which they're extremely unlikely to do, then I still probably can re-isolate them and rout some of those guys, leading to very heavy losses. I don't necessarily need to surrender all of them. I think the most important thing about it is that I inflict heavy casualties and disrupt their southern attack. Like currently, like look, this is like a 200-kilometer gap between Army Group South and Army Group Center, and that's basically what I want to see. And then the incidental, unit that he can move here is hopefully not going to be enough. It also means I don't have a rail yard. Ah, crap. It's there, but it's being repaired. Do I have a rail yard here? 35. These rail unit or these tank units. The more I click them, the weaker they get. They cannot move a lot because they'll just get very weak. And what if I move you here? That keeps them in reasonable shape. Just have to not drive with them too much. I will still need to reorganize my armies. That's very much true. I know that. Okay, those two need to be on refit. You kind of don't. So let's actually keep a second cavalry on there. I don't think it's necessarily all that useful. Yeah, the difficulty is that my opponent is also going to potentially push in here, and I don't want to get into too much trouble. Interesting. I'll take the cav, put the 178th in here. It's better defense than what I had before. I do have other units that can take up the slack now. This unit under Central Front, that makes no sense. Needs to be under the Bryansk front. Or Western Front. The 24th Army is also already overburdened. I'll start getting units here under the 61st. How good is this guy? Not good. Let's use Rokossovsky for this attack. 14. Okay, there we go. Also have them get tank brigades, because I do again also think this is going to be a tough fight if they will make it at all. We'll see. That is insane. It's also a very weak unit, supposedly. Whew. I needed a lot. 12-to-1 ratio. And then they still only lost 180 men. Okay. Let's push through this cavalry. Now, what I need to do is I need to get units. In here. Let's see if that gets converted. Yes, it does. Alright, that means these two units are isolated for a turn. Which is also interesting. Swiss cheese. Okay. And again, I'm quite sure my opponent can reconnect those. That's not what this is about. I did attack them with a big failure. That sucked. Again, the potential to have the rail cut here somewhere. I don't think my opponent has this rail ready already. It's a shame I gave him access to it in the first place, but it can be held. My opponent has a unit here. Wow. Okay. That's new. Well, this is what cavalry is for. Well, at that point, I'll see what I can do with this line. Certainly continues to be interesting like that. Now, it might be prudent. No, I'm just straight up not going to be able to defeat this unit. That is certain. I don't need to use the cavalry here. But oh, those units also cannot move in there. I do think it's interesting to see whether I can get some cavalry in there and hold that position. And then as for these tanks and such, they don't need to move too much. They can just stay there for this turn. It's not very useful to move them then if this attack isn't going anywhere. It's just that this isolation is probably reasonably well done. And, you know, again, should cause them enough trouble. Now, it should mean that those units will be a lot weaker in the future. A cavalry, a tank division. I'd rather put another cavalry in here. Which are all weak. The defense is 2. And so, you know, they'll just rout them and encircle this potentially, or something else. But that's okay, and I couldn't do another attack here if I wanted either way. Okay, let's take a look which units need to switch. 10, 7, you're at 8,000. Let's refit you. Levy D 296th. 897. 9784. It's not a weak unit by any means, but that's okay. 10, 4, 9, 8, 10, 8, 1, 4, 12. Wow. It is nice to see that I have quite a lot of troops that are doing a lot better now with all the additional manpower. I guess it just got divided over the remainder of the units. I guess apparently nothing in the reserve, but my units on the map received a lot, I guess. I mean that's fine. Take a look here too, which units, they're all at 10,000. Or close to. Quite pleased at that. I just recently took this hex. So naturally nothing's gonna happen there either. Again, I'll be rallying more units further south. I think for the moment I'll put them here in order to reinforce the line in this area. I think that's only fair. Because otherwise the line would be quite weak. I don't know why I got these guys on the actual map. I really don't know why I cannot send it immediately to the far east. It does have enough to get on the rail line. This stuff sometimes really baffles me. I've really no clue. Still can't merge these. But I know I'm sending them all down. Same for the 78th. I think in this case, yeah. Exploiting this is probably more important than pushing the Germans back in this area. If my opponent wants to try and capture Moscow in 1942, while having such a weak south with me going to attack down there, or something similar, he can be my guest. I don't... Yeah, I think my opponent needs to seriously shorten his lines there with everything that's going on here. Workers Moscow, I guess stuff like that, Communist and Workers Moscow, I'll keep them down there. Tank division, rail it down. I'll rail this rifle division into Belgorod, or let's get it to Bryansk and get it to refit there so it can fortify the line in this area. Oh wow, can't even get off the train, nice. There we go. The one thing that scares me a little bit is stuff like this. That's get you up here. And get a few men in there. Not cavalry. But certainly other things. Also like this rifle division. Get this cavalry into Belgorod. On the refit. And pretty long turn this time, but that's fine. Okay, if I do get some infantry, I think it might be worth to try and defend in that area. 60th Army, great. Certainly do also need another army here. Did I get reinforcements? I probably did not, but... Come on. Okay, fair enough. I'll send it over here. Alright, well, I'm taking a little break and then I'll be back. Yeah, most certainly. I'll put one more unit into Leningrad Fortress and then I'll be done with that. My opponent is putting a lot of stuff here still, so I still expect some form of an attack, really. I mean, it's mostly twos, but I certainly cannot break through here. So, yeah, especially for the north, I think the front really has solidified quite a lot. So, alright, I'll be back. I'll probably just reorganize my units, which I guess then I'll do off screen. If there are still any attacks that I'm going to perform, then I will obviously show that off at some point. Just that's what it's gonna be. So take care and see you on the other side. Alright, back, and let's take a look at the changes here. I've reorganized quite a little bit while I was away, making sure that everything is looking good and that the fronts are no longer overburdened. I made a misclick between Northwestern Front and Leningrad Front, which is why Leningrad Front is once again overburdened, but yeah, I've pulled the Kalinin front up north, cleaned everything up a bit. A lot of the reserve units here are now just straight under Stavka. I actually am not done yet. Apparently, you always keep finding things. Either way, those guys are ready and ready. But they can stay there for one more turn. Yeah, so now the Moscow military district zone is, well, it has this one army. I still have to do a bit more reorganization. But most of it is practically done. And yeah, you cannot go onto the Moscow military district. I know like this could get more forces. I got 60th Army, which will next turn start taking a lot of cavalry, things like that. I still need to switch up some generals, but not even all too many. Made sure that we have a line of 3 and then behind a line of 1. I've sent quite a few units further down south to exploit this breach. Because I definitely need more units. Down here too. Yeah. So basically a lot of reinforcements coming down. Cleaned up the western front. Cleaned up Bryansk front, which is still a bit overburdened, but you can't have everything. So I'll have to keep working on it. Central front is now here. I guess retreating towards Belgorod and or Voronezh, or advancing towards the Dnieper and Kiev. I mean, it's a bit of a... I guess I'm advancing. Then we have Southwestern front, which is now squeezed in here. Can take a unit or two more, so we'll be able to potentially take some stuff from Southern front, but even Southern front is also doing a lot better. So the fronts having too many commands, too many units under their command is all but over. I made a few smaller switch ups besides, so I sent some units down. But I didn't really do that many replacements. I did a few here in order to make sure that on each stack, for as much as possible, I have one army, and there won't be that much trouble there. So all that stuff is looking pretty nice. I'm quite happy with it. And then I've also used the Stavka. I'm distributing stuff again, so that's also working out quite nice. Right, well, that was something. We're going into November now. Still no change here. Many of these hexes are X's now and high defenses. I cannot get through. Wonder if my opponent would ever be contemplating attacking that way with the armor. The good thing about this attack also is that it distracts the opponent. He has to move all his armor there now, just to make sure that I don't get to the Dnieper. I mean, I retook Chernikov, but yeah, it's a rather limited offensive, but it's kind of... we have to assume that he has units there, but not too many around here. There's a huge gap where he has very limited units. And he needs to keep feeding into this in order to make sure that these units are not cut off, or he's going to make a new line around here, which I think is also not nice, because he's going to lose around 100k men and a buttload of trucks probably. Let's take a quick look at these. Victory points for my opponents, 517. 22 is the high watermark, but it doesn't matter because they don't check yet. Total men, I'm very close to my opponent now. Total guns, exceeding it by 10,000. AFVs, I'm still going down, though my opponent lost quite a few AFVs too. Total aircraft doesn't really matter. Manpower losses, quite high for my opponent last turn, not so much this turn. Back to 26,000 like that. Gun losses was also really high for my opponent last turn. AFV losses. Now, look at the map here. Map men. I have more men on the map than my opponent by a million. Map guns, map AFVs, and map airplanes. I have very low airplanes. Armaments. For us going down, I guess because we got 500,000 men, but they didn't make it into the pool like that. We've just been hovering around like this. My opponent keeps getting more manpower in the pool, but probably cannot bring it to the front. Supply stores, oil stores, fuel stores. Not that these matter that much. I mean, manpower and armament does, I guess. Alright, I'm gonna ship it back to my opponent. The front looks really weird like this, since my opponent got really far here, and then like down here he's going all the way to the Dnieper. It's creating a very big point north, but he's faltering in the south. It's pretty interesting. Alright, well, there we go. Turn 25. Well, it's good to take one last look at this. Supplies here, because I cannot actually, especially here, I can't push it really much further. I would have to assume my opponent is not going to attack there again. Creating a depot. I want to go a bit deeper with my depots because I think it will really help out too to go a bit further. Is there a city here? But I still want to keep to my plan of just only having depots on the cities. Yes. Depot. There too. Because I have to go all the way here, and I guess working on the rail line further down south. I also have both rail units here now, so that's also good. Alright, and now I'm ready. And we'll see how my opponent responds to this offensive. Be pretty interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.